At the start of our story, we see an old man coughing and saying, "I am an earthling from a civilized society. I came from a civilized society." Just then, a little girl enters his house with some food in her hand. Seeing the old man like that, she says, "Mr. So, are you okay? My mother sent this for you." Here, we learn that this old man's name is So. He thanks the little girl. Then, while placing the food on the ground, little girl replies, "Not a problem. Please get well soon and make some more soap." Saying that, she leaves the house and walks back toward her home in a snowstorm. This old CO is an earthling, an inhabitant of a civilized world. It's been 50 years since he fell into this cursed world. They were on their way to a workshop with Director Kim and other company employees when they were suddenly swept away in a landslide. When they came to their senses, they found themselves in a strange world. A fox as big as a house with 3 tails, a large red-scaled snake with 2 heads, and beings wielding swords flying through the sky. It was a world like the martial arts novels he occasionally read. Although it was a strange world, most of his colleagues probably did quite well, except for him. Among the 7 people who fell into the martial world that day, within just 3 days of their arrival, destinies began to unfold. The sage-like beings who descended from above were in awe of his co-workers' mythical talents and took each one of them into the sky. Only he and Director Kim remained in this world. To be honest, they had hopes that something special would happen to them too, but neither Director Kim nor he had any special abilities. Diamam found itself in his podum, and Diamam took to his people and led them to the spot of them. Without knowing much about this world, all they could do was manual labor. For 6 months, the two worked menial jobs in a busy marketplace, earning their meals. Until one day, Director Kim could take it no longer. He told CO that he couldn't live like this anymore and used all his money to buy a third-rate martial arts book sold on the streets. Everyone laughed at him, but within 3 months, he mastered it and became a full-fledged martial artist. He worked for the nation and learned more and more advanced martial arts. After he became a powerful warrior, Director Kim left for the Jianghu, leaving Seo behind. Seo just hoped that something special could happen to him as well, but until the end, nothing happened to him at all. After 50 years, he is now just an old man dying from a common cold. He coughs blood, repeating that he is from Earth. He has tried his hardest to live. He learned the language, learned to read and write, worked as a laborer to make a living, bought a small plot of land, and built his own house. He started making some decent money when he began making soap using lye. In this medieval time, soap was essentially a new concept. However, even that ended after some thieves stole the method of making his soap and started producing their own. These thugs booted So out of the market. Now he is waiting for his death. Having been rejected by this world, a frustrated So asks the world, "What do you want from me? Even though I tried my hardest, what must I do?" He starts crying, asking why he couldn't have been selected even if he was not special, and why he has to continue losing everything. Now CO no longer has the energy to keep his eyes open. As his eyes start to close, he hopes that if he just had a bit more power, maybe, just maybe, he might have had more opportunities. Lying on his bed, sick with a cold, CO's life ends. That was how he died, and how, with a bright light, he opened his eyes again. He slowly looked down at his body. It's not a hand full of wrinkles and lines. It is a young hand, full of vitality and life. He was wearing something clearly different from the clothes of this world, the blue shirt and sweatpants he had worn on Earth. He looked around, trying to grasp the situation. Then he saw Director Kim, Chief O, Section Chief Jun, Deputy Manager Kang, Deputy Manager O, and Manager Kim. So was shocked to see them. Now he finally realized he hadn't come to this world powerless. He had gained the power of regression. This was So's first regression. Director Kim, with half his hair shaved off, looked around and asked, "What's happening? We were just on our way to a workshop." He didn't know where they were, but CO knew. This was the first day they had just landed in this strange world. CO remembered how they ended up here. They were in an SUV going to the workshop when they got caught in a landslide, and then something flashed. It was a 50-year-old memory, so it was a bit hazy, and even CO couldn't remember clearly. While he was thinking this, suddenly someone called from behind, "Hey, Deputy Manager CO!" But CO was still lost in his thoughts, wondering, now that I have regressed, how should I live? Usually in regression novels, people live well using their future knowledge. But all I know is making soap. Suddenly, the guy from behind grabbed CO's shoulder and shouted, "Manager, Sionyon!" CO snapped out of his daydream at the shout. He looked back and saw it was Section Chief Zion. CO said, "Sorry," trying to explain that he was a bit startled. But suddenly, with a swish, Section Chief Zion slapped CO across the face. Everyone present was shocked to see that. Section Chief John shouted, "Deputy Manager CO, you bastard, you dozed off while driving on the mountainside. You almost got us all killed." Seo stood there dazed from the slap. He had forgotten this deputy manager title. It was a title he hadn't heard in so long that he didn't realize Section Chief Jun was referring to him. Section Chief Jun looked at Seo angrily and asked, "Manager Seo, do you want to lose your job the moment we get back?" Hearing that, Seo remembered the face he hadn't seen in a long time. Section Chief John Myung-hoon was a son of a bitch. He was the nephew of John Myung-chol, the executive director of the company Seo worked for. At 32, he had already snagged the section chief position through nepotism. When John Myung-hoon was about to charge at Seo in anger, Chief Oh stood up and stopped him. He told John it was enough, because that landslide wasn't something Deputy Manager Seo could have done anything about. But John shouted again, asking, "Aren't you angry, Chief Oh? This insane jerk was dozing off. That's why we're in this situation." Hearing that, Seo remembered that he definitely had dozed off while driving. But the reason he was dozing off was because John had dumped all his work on Seo the day before the workshop, the work John had been putting off, forcing Seo to stay up all night. Thinking about it again, Seo also remembered that originally the one in charge of driving was John. Originally, he was supposed to drive. Pointing at Seo, John shouted, "This stupid bastard. We're stranded because of him." But Seo was slowly starting to recall his memories from 50 years ago. Back then, Seo was so shocked, he didn't understand what was happening. So, unwittingly, he apologized to John. He even thought it was his own fault. Then he went on to spend the next 50 years just like that, apologizing to people even when a group of bandits trampled over him and took his belongings, when a damned martial artist mocked him, or when a regional official took everything he had in the name of taxes. He kept apologizing, but there was one thing Seo realized after years of holding it in. Sure, he had to keep his temper in front of those he couldn't handle, but not in front of everyone. Seo stood up and, with a straight face, said, "Section Chief John, I know you're mad, but now's not the time to be pointing fingers." Hearing that, John got furious and lunged at him, shouting, "You damn son of a bitch." He punched Seo again, shouting, "Are you asking for a fight?" This punch made Seo realize that he didn't need to kneel before someone he could handle. He turned around and punched John in the face, sending him flying. Seeing that, everyone present was too shocked. They could not believe their eyes. So continued punching John. In his past life, Seo had been beaten up by martial artists countless times. He was beaten up by bandits while gathering herbs in the mountains, by more bandits during years of bad harvest, and even by officials because he couldn't pay his taxes. Now, Seo sat on John, not giving him even a chance to fight back. Seeing this, everyone froze in their place, not knowing what to do. In that world of violence, Seo was able to gain something that these people lacked. He gained violence. If one hits someone in the eyes, their fear is amplified, and after being beaten up like this, only 2 words instinctively leave opponents' mouths: "I'm sorry." Those were the exact words John said when Sue hit him in the eyes. Sue may not have the mythical talents mentioned by those transcendent individuals, or the amazing martial arts that would make him famous in the martial arts world, but now he did have the ability to change fate. Director Kim, Chief Oh, Deputy Manager Kang, Deputy Manager Oh, and Manager Kim all were looking at Sue with fearful eyes. Among them, Director Kim spoke up with a trembling voice, "Deputy Manager Seo, no matter what, how could you beat a fellow colleague to that extent?" Seo didn't argue and immediately accepted it, saying, "Yes, you're right, Director Kim. I just got so angry at the moment. I apologize for startling everyone." Since Seo would never see any of the others again anyway, he bowed neatly to Director Kim and the other employees and apologized, saying that since he was the one driving, he was sorry for not doing more at that time. Director Kim told Seo that sure, Section Chief Jun had been a bit harsh, and Seo couldn't really have done anything about the landslide. Even then, Jun overreacted. He asked Seo to apologize to Jun directly. Knowing he would continue seeing Director Kim, Seo followed his words because Director Kim would become one of the strongest martial artists there once he started learning. If Seo supported him as much as he could in this life, he was sure he would get something out of it too. That meant he needed to get on Director Kim's good side now. Seo turned to Jun and, while offering a helping hand, apologized, saying his reaction was not warranted. Han, whose face was swollen from Seo's beating, looked angry and was about to crush him, but he stopped after seeing Seo look at him with dead eyes and no fear. After everyone calmed down, Director Kim looked toward the forest and suggested, "Why don't we try to get out of these woods and look for a village?" Seo agreed because that was the logical thing to do, but he knew that here, immortals flew wild, trying to secure their immortality, and the only rule that reigned in this land was, "The strong devours the weak." The people of this place, the Miram, fought with swords for wealth and honor. This forest's name was Ascension Path. There was no village, city, or nation anywhere around here. CO suggested to Director Kim, since the sun is going to set soon, why don't we set up a shelter somewhere safe? Director Kim thought CO's suggestion was right, but asked, what about the car? There's quite a lot of things in there that we packed for the workshop. In that car, there were many things they could use, but only CO knew they wouldn't be able to find the car. He also knew they wouldn't believe him, so he decided to just let them look for the car instead of wasting his energy trying to convince them. He suggested that they should split up. Then, one team could look for shelter and the other could look for the car. They would meet back here before it got completely dark. After a few hours, CO started a fire in a cave near the place they first arrived. While eating, a black-haired girl told the others that she didn't get it. We were caught in a landslide while we were in a car, so how did we end up here while the car is gone? Director Kim agreed with the girl, saying he didn't get it either. Everyone was sitting around the fire eating. Pointing at the food, a girl commented, "This tastes like chestnuts." Hearing that, Seo asked her if it was crunchy. He told them he had a lot of it, so they could have as much as they wanted. Hearing that, Director Kim laughed and said, "It's a pretty serious situation, but thanks to Manager Seo, we're having fun." He praised Seo, saying, "I knew you were this dependable even back in the company." While everyone was eating, Seo noticed John sleeping in a corner, refusing to eat anything. Director Kim spoke a little louder so John could hear. "Manager Seo, if I remember correctly, you were tired while driving because you had to work late yesterday." Others agreed with Director Kim. A brown-haired girl told Director Kim, "He's right, their manager is really diligent." A red-haired girl also praised Seo, saying, "It feels like we're camping thanks to this cave manager Seo found." Seo knew they were right, because in his past life, they only found this place after being lost in the woods for hours, but he acted modest and told them he was just lucky. Hearing that, everyone laughed and told Seo he could just take the compliment. Seo also thought that he should enjoy this moment because tonight would be the last time they could laugh like this. The next morning, trembling in fear, Seo offered his greetings to the Lord of the Forest. The Lord of the Forest he was greeting was a huge seven-tailed fox with red glowing eyes. The fox looked at Seo and, with a smile, said, "Human, you have quite a unique scent for a human. Despite having lived thousands of years, I have never smelled humans like you." Hearing the commotion outside, the black-haired girl woke up. She came outside and asked Seo what had happened. But when she saw the huge fox, she got scared and screamed. Hearing her scream, others also woke up and came out of the cave. When they saw the huge fox, they too got scared and screamed. Hearing them, Seo looked back and shouted, telling them to show their manners to the Lord of the Forest and get on their knees. Hearing Seo, the seven-tailed fox said, "Every time I come across you humans, I am reminded how foolish and rude you all are." It told them that it would usually rip off all their limbs, but since one of them seemed to know how to treat him, he would forgive them. With that being said, they must pay the price for being in his territory. If one of them offers him an arm, he will let them stay here. Hearing the fox talk, everyone was already too scared, and after listening to its demands, they became even more terrified. Seo was also very scared because in his past life, everyone who saw this monster screamed in panic, and they all ended up dead, having angered the fox. But Seo was a little relieved to see that the fox appreciated his manners this time, and wasn't ripping off all their limbs like last time. Then, while licking its mouth, the seven-tailed fox asked who would give him their arm. Seo calculated that it was just one person's arm. That's all they needed to sacrifice. Even a lost arm would be healed by the cultivators, who would appear 2 days later. Plus, Seo had already prepared an herb that would reduce the pain. Thinking all that, Seo removed his sleeves and extended his hand toward the seven-tailed fox. While trembling, he told it that he would offer his arm. Everyone was shocked that Seo was sacrificing his hand for them. The seven-tailed fox opened its mouth and immediately lunged at Seo, saying, "You know your manners, so I will try to make it as painless as possible in return." Then, in the next second, with a loud scream of pain, Seo lost one arm. The seven-tailed fox completely bit off Seo's hand and ate it. Everyone looked away. They couldn't bear to see the horrifying scene right in front of them. Seo was in too much pain. Tears streamed down his face as he extended his other arm to grab the herb. The pain was so intense that Seo didn't have time to think about anything else at the moment. He immediately ate the herb he had prepared for pain relief. After eating Seo's hand, the seven-tailed fox told Seo that it thought he might taste different, since he smelled different. But he tasted the same as the other humans. Actually, he tasted worse because of all the impurities in his veins. Hearing the fox, Seo began to come back to his senses. He was surprised to see that the herb actually helped a lot with the pain. After calming down, Seo apologized to the seven-tailed fox, saying his offering was not good enough. But the fox was not interested in talking. It turned around to leave, telling them that it would allow them to stay for 7 days in its territory and that they wouldn't die thanks to its divinity. Saying that, it leapt into the sky with super speed and disappeared. After the seven-tailed fox left, a worried group ran toward Seo to check on him. Seo slowly stood up and asked everyone to go inside, saying he would explain everything. Once inside the cave, Seo slowly told them that he had met the fox when he left the cave early that morning. The fox told him that they were in Muram. Everyone was shocked to hear they were in Muram. Director Kim asked Seo if he meant they were really in Muram because it was unbelievable. Seo said it didn't matter and told them they would be safe for a week since he had given up his arm. Hearing that it was just a week, Director Kim asked Seo what would happen after that. Breathing heavily, Seo told Director Kim that they would need to give up something else the following week. Hearing that, everyone was stunned. As the herb's effects kicked in, Seo started to get sleepy. He told the others that he was getting sleepy and would rest a bit, hoping they would understand. Saying that, he fell asleep right there. Then, 15 hours later at night, Seo woke up alone in the cave. He heard his colleagues talking outside. They were all angry at John, asking him how he could say that Manager Zoe sacrificed his own arm. John argued back, asking, then who wants to give up their arm and leg every week? But Chief O told John that Manager So was very useful since he was the one who provided them food and shelter. Then John suggested they should learn as much as they could from So in a week, adding that since So had already lost an arm, he wouldn't last long anyway. That's why they should have him be the sacrifice again. Joan said all that, not knowing Seo had woken up and was listening from behind. Seo was surprised to hear that now that he had become debilitated, Joan wanted to chop off one of his limbs every week to give to the fox. That was definitely not pleasing. Looking at Joan, Seo grabbed a rock from the ground. He looked at the rock and thought that with the violence he had learned from being beaten up for 50 years, he could easily kill a modern-day man like Jeon Myung-hoon with one arm. He looked at John again, who was still convincing others to force Seo to give up his other arm too. Angrily, Seo thought to himself whether he should kill Jun, but he didn't act recklessly. Instead, he threw the rock back and returned to the cave. He understood that fear had surely paralyzed their minds, and if he acted too cruelly now, it would cause issues with his relationship with Director Kim. Suddenly, Chief O shouted at Jun to shut up if he didn't want his ankles broken again. Hearing that, Seo laughed. He was right to think that they were good people. It was just a confusing situation for everyone. The next day, as the sun rose, everyone gathered in front of the cave. This time, a two-headed snake appeared before them. But, unlike the fox who had eaten Seo's arm, the two-headed snake only requested a small amount of blood. It was the very same snake that had sucked out Chief O's blood, who had lost his limbs in his last life. Hearing that it was just a small amount, nervous Chief O put his own arm forward this time, but after drinking Chief O's blood, the snake vomited, saying, "This is disgusting. This is the worst human blood I have ever had." Hearing that, Chief O got furious, but Seo knew it was the blood of a 21st century worker drenched in nicotine and cholesterol. No wonder it tasted gross. So then turned around and asked John Myung-hoon to come with him to pick some herbs. Hearing that, John was shocked and asked So if he had just called him by his full name. But So didn't reply. Instead, he asked if John was hungry. John said he was. Seo walked toward Jun and said, "I will tell you about the fruits and edible herbs, so follow me." Seo got closer and whispered to Jun that he planned to give his arm to the fox next week as well, and if he died, someone needed to know how to survive in this forest. Hearing that, Jun got very scared. Realizing that So had heard everything last night, he had no choice but to thank So and agree to go with him. Hearing his thanks, So laughed inside, because only he knew the fox wouldn't be coming back, and Jun would never make use of this knowledge. As both of them arrived at a place full of fruit trees, Seo shouted, "Jeon Myung-hoon, how many times do I need to tell you that that's the wrong fruit? Concentrate," Seo said sorry while picking a red fruit. Seeing that, Seo told him that fruit would get him killed. This continued for hours as Seo gave orders to Jung, and Jung had to follow them. Jun started to get exhausted and asked Seo to hold on, saying he needed a break. He had been digging non-stop to get these herbs. Seeing his condition, Seo laughed inside because this was how Jun used to punish him when he first entered the company. Seo told Jun that they needed to finish before dusk, so they should hurry up. Slowly, time passed, and both continued doing their part. Then, suddenly, Jun dug out a very large ginseng. Jun was shocked to see it. He held it in his hand and said, "This thing is massive." He asked Seo if this was natural ginseng. Seo told him it was something like that. Seo knew that while it did resemble ginseng, to be precise, it was a yellow bamboo root. It might be because the ascension path was so full of energy, but yellow bamboo roots, which are typically as small as a pinky finger, grew to this size here. Seo knew it wouldn't be of much use to cultivators, but it was an extremely precious medicine for martial artists used to increase ki, and it should help Director Kim. While talking, they found two more right there. Amazed, John asked Seo if it was okay to dig up this much wild ginseng. Seo, of course, said yes and told him to take off his shirt and place them in it. Seo looked at the setting sun and a crack in space. Seeing that, Seo realized it was almost time for those cultivators to come. He asked Jian, "Let's head back." As they returned to the cave, suddenly the crack Seo had seen before exploded with a huge blast, releasing massive amounts of spiritual energy into the sky. At the moment of the explosion, Chun fell to the ground, screaming while grabbing his head. Not only him, Chief O was in the same condition along with Manager Kang. All three of them were clutching their heads, screaming in pain. Seeing this, Director Kim began to panic, asking what had happened to them. Just then, three cultivators appeared, flying into the sky. Looking at John, Chief O, and Manager Kang, a cultivator named Buko wearing golden clothes, said, "What a surprise! To think we'd find such uncut talent here." A black-clothed cultivator named Hyogwok told Buko to go away, saying they were his. Hearing that, the third cultivator wearing blue clothes called Hyogwok shameless. Seeing these cultivators, Director Kim got scared and asked who they were. The cultivators noticed there were 7 people, but only the 3 had spiritual roots. The rest were just normal mortals. Then Buko raised his hands and created a ball of lightning. He struck Jun with it, and Jun screamed in pain as thousands of bolts of lightning entered his body. When Buko stopped, he was amazed to see how incredible Jun's body was. It was the body of heavenly golden thunder. Then Hyogwok came forward, telling Buko to move because it was his turn. Hyogwok was holding a musical instrument, and as he started playing, Manager Kang, who was covering her ears, suddenly began screaming in pain. But it wasn't a normal scream. It was so loud that the whole forest echoed. Seeing that, Hyogwok got too excited, realizing that Manager Kang had the ghostly yin transforming immortal root. He hadn't thought such a thing really existed. Then it was the third cultivator's turn. He landed on the ground and, grabbing Chief O's shoulder, injected his spiritual energy into him. He checked Chief O's body and found that it was a unique holy body. Chief O was too shocked, asking the cultivator what was going on. The cultivator smiled and declared that he would take all 3 of them as disciples of the Azure Heaven creation sect, because all 3 had the talent to change the entire world. With a deep voice, he asked Chief O, "How does that sound, Chief?" O was terrified in the cultivator's presence. He couldn't even breathe. He was confused, wondering what this force was and felt like he would die if he refused. Suddenly, Hyogwok came down and asked Chief O to join the Black Ghost Valley instead, saying they had every cultivation method, immortality, the power to overturn the heavens, fame, and wealth. He promised to ensure they would get all of those things within 100 years. Suddenly, Buko also came down and asked Hyogwok what he was saying, claiming that the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect was the most suited for them. While they were talking, Director Kim intervened and asked the cultivators if they could get them out of this forest because at this rate they would all die there. But the cultivators completely ignored him. Buko took out a bottle and opened its cap, saying, "Mortals worry too much. How did you get to the ascension path with such a worthless body?" Saying that, he pointed the bottle's mouth toward Jean, and the bottle sucked Jean inside. Jean could only scream for help. Then the blue cloth cultivator took Chifo and looked at Siuv. He smiled and said, "Seems like one of them lost an arm to that fox," and seeing the wound, he offered it up himself. He used his spiritual power to heal Sio's hand, telling him that he may be a mere mortal, but he had guts. Sio's whole hand grew back, and he thanked the cultivator. Hyogwok also took Manager Kang with him. Then all 3 cultivators flew back into the sky and, while leaving, told Seo that they had captured all the beasts and monsters of the Ascension Path on their way here, so it would be safe here for the next 10 years. Seeing them leave, Director Kim chased after them, asking them to hold on and to tell them where to go because they didn't even know which way to take to leave. He called out to Section Chief Jeong, Chief O, and Deputy Manager Kang, but it was no use. The cultivators flew into the sky and disappeared. Seeing them go, Seo was very disappointed, but it was no use because the same thing had happened 50 years ago. No matter how hard they shouted, those cultivators ignored them like insects and continued on their way. Seo was a little relieved that at least they had healed his arm. While chasing after them, Director Kim ran out of breath and fell to the ground, asking, "What do you want us to do in a forest like this?" But before he lost all hope, suddenly Director Kim saw many beams of light flying in the direction those cultivators had gone. Seeing that, he got confused and asked, "What are all those lights in the sky? Is there something in that direction?" But Director Kim could not leave his team behind, so he returned. The next day, it was a rainy day with lightning striking all around. All four Manager Kim, Manager, and Director Kim were hiding in the same cave. But Deputy Manager O's condition was not good. She was coughing up blood while lying on the ground. Manager Kim asked Sei if there was some kind of herb they could use because Deputy Manager O was in terrible condition. She was panicking, not knowing what to do. Knowing the future, Sei told Manager Kim, "Let's wait a little longer. Someone might appear and heal her." Hearing that, Manager Kim got confused. Suddenly, they heard someone's footsteps. Someone entered the cave and said, "Mortals in the Ascension Path are like ants suffering among the competition between dragons." Seeing that man, Director Kim jumped right in front and asked, "Who are you?" The person smiled and said, "I am the Sea Dragon King, Soehuol."